Namaste and good morning. I have the great pleasure and honor to share with you some principles of Ayurveda and give some ideas about how they might support your yoga practice. I see Ayurveda and yoga as sister sciences, sometimes they're called, and I honestly deeply believe that when we learn the practices of Ayurveda and actually apply them to our lives, including our yoga practice, that we will be creating a new world, which is forming almost right in front of our eyes, like it or not. So since yoga is defined as the study of consciousness itself, and Ayurveda is defined as the study of life itself, I think as intelligent beings, we really need to look at our life and see what we can do to make it more sustainable, how we can be more resilient in it, and how we can basically enjoy ourselves more. Happiness is a goal of yoga and Ayurveda, santosha, contentment, a sattvic life. And so hopefully some of the principles that we discussed today will help you understand better how to bring that to yourself and the people around you. So we're going to start with 3 Oms chanted together, and then a short mantra that basically is sharing the joy that we feel when we have the great privilege of practicing yoga with all other sentient beings, plants, animals, minerals of the planet, our dear planet Earth. So I'm going to imagine I'm in Samara right now, and we'll be able to go to the beach when we're through. And if you haven't been to Samara, you really need to go and visit. It is a unique and very special place. So I'm closing my eyes to imagine myself there. I'm using my fingertips, pressing down to lift my side ribs up as I press my sitting bones evenly down. And please use a little height. I have a blanket under my sitting bones to help me move the sacrum up and in. And then I can bring my palms together at my heart with my thumbs in touch with my t-shirt, the skin, the bone underneath. You can let your hands rest if you're more comfortable with that. And we'll begin, as I said, with 3 Oms and then move to this simple mantra, Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. May all beings everywhere share in our happiness and peacefulness. So close your eyes, imagine you're in a beautiful, beautiful place. Go inward. That beautiful place exists within us as well as outside of us. Draw your senses inward, relax your forehead, temples, relax your eyes, ears, tongue, mouth, nose, and be aware of the rhythm of your breath right now. Rhythm is a big topic that we'll be talking about, how to tune into the rhythms of your life and balance them with the rhythms of the day and the seasons. So after your next natural breath in, a longer, deeper breath out, slow, steady, and then a slow, steady, deep breath in, and we'll begin with those Oms together. Breathe in. Om. 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 Loka, Loka, repeat, Loka, Samasta, 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 Sukhino, 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 Bhavantu, Bhavantu, Bhavantu. So we did a lot of repetition. Here's the whole thing. Listen and then repeat once with me if you like. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. And an Om. Om. So check again, collarbones broad, shoulder blades firm on your upper back. Exhaling if you like, surrendering the head to the heart for a moment by bringing it down from the nape of the neck in the direction of the heart and the hands if they're there. Again, be inward for another moment. Recognize that heart as your deepest inner teacher. And again, as you release your hands and bring your head up, how lucky we are to have this time to spend together. So thank you for being here. We're going to start with a little description of Samkhya philosophy. So Samkhya philosophy is usually translated, the word Samkhya, as a system of enumeration for arriving at the truth. And what you'll find when you study the Yoga Sutras, when you study the texts of Ayurveda, is that they're often 5 principles listed, or 5 herbs listed, or 5 practices listed that that will bring us enlightenment or help us on our path to greater happiness and health. So let's see if I can bring up this diagram that my partner RJ did of the Samkhya philosophy. Good, there it is. And on the left, you'll see a kind of spiral at the top that has inside of it, it might be too small to read, but it says Purusha. And by the way, all of these drawings are from my book, almost all of them, called Physical Poetry, Uniting Yoga and Ayurveda. And that's me, Peggy Kelley, the author of that book. So sometimes we use it as a text in our program at Costa Rica School of Massage Therapy and Yoga. And it's been wonderful for me to share it with people that way. So this diagram is from that book. Purusha means pure consciousness. It has really no attributes because it is, in a sense, everything. And it is involved in a communication or a dance, as you can see through the movement of the spirals, with what's called on the right side Prakriti, which means nature. Everything you can see, feel, hear, touch, smell, sense in any way, even on more intuitive levels, all of that is Prakriti. And when Prakriti and Purusha communicate, what arises is our world, starting with Mahad. You'll see in the center there, coming down kind of like a flower there, and Buddhi. These are the great mind and the more individualized mind, and then finally the sort of butterfly in the middle, Ahamkara, which is often translated as ego. And I've been realizing recently that we in the West have a different understanding of ego from how it's understood in the East. For example, my Indian friends don't see ego as something that separates them from other people. It's ego in community, whereas we tend to see ego as something that puts us off in little boxes. And maybe we'll talk a little bit more about that later. So Purusha Prakriti in a dance, you could say Shiva and Shakti in a dance, giving rise to this, this ahamkara, this individualized consciousness. And that gives rise to the 3 gunas, sattva on the right with a sort of crystal shape, 2 points, aiming downward, 1 point aiming upward, and then kind of a scribble in the middle that has no offspring, no offshoots. That's rajas, or pure energy. And then the dark circle on the other side, which represents tamas, or darkness, heaviness, night, you might say, whereas sattva represents the day. And obviously they're both extremely necessary and vital to the creation of our world, the sattva giving rise to the organic world, and the tamas to the inorganic world. So on the right, you'll see 5 sense faculties and 5 faculties of action. So again, this number 5, or pancha, the sense faculties, hearing, sight, smell, taste, touch, all of these faculties are considered to be jnanendriyas. The Sanskrit names aren't so important to learn, but just that this guna, this main principle of peace and tranquility and balance and harmony, gives rise to the organic world of the 5 sense organs and the 5 organs of action, which are on the right, the arrow coming down on the right from sattva. These include the mouth, the hands, arms, the feet, legs, the anus, and the genitals. These are our bodily organs that we use to interact with the world. And then in the center, we have what is sometimes called the 11th sense, or the mind. It is a faculty of cognition, let's say. And again, I just want to emphasize that language is sometimes a bit inadequate to really explain the differences in philosophies and basic understandings of the world that come to our culture from another culture. And in Indian philosophy, Samkhya philosophy included, mind and intellect are different. In other words, mind has that quality of cognizing the world and cognizing our thoughts, but intellect has a discerning function, a discriminating function. Discriminating has a little more of sometimes a negative connotation, but discernment is necessary. It's refined. It's an even higher, you might say, a higher faculty that we have than cognition. Discernment, knowing what is the more sustainable path, for example, right now. What is the more resilient path? How can we build more resiliency into our lives and continue on a sustainable path? So these are questions we need to be asking ourselves right now. And since, well, we're not quite done with the Samkhya philosophy, maybe I'll hold that thought for when we finish talking about the inorganic side that comes from tamas. Now, these are not value judgments. Tamas or heaviness or darkness is absolutely necessary in our world of duality so that we can know what is bright, what is light, what is balanced. And what tamas gives rise to are called the 5 great elements, or the 5 pancha, means 5 mahabhutas, great elements, starting with the left side, which is the most refined of the elements, comes through the guna of or the attribute of sound, and is the guna of ether or akasha. It doesn't matter, the Sanskrit words don't matter, but this is the most refined element. And then we have touch, which is the guna of air, or vayu. And then in the center we have form, which is the guna of fire, and gives us sight. And then we have taste and odor, taste being the guna of water and odor being the guna of earth. So these panchamahabhutas are the last word in that column, ether, air, fire, water, and earth. And then the doshas come from a combination of 2. So the Vata dosha, the dosha of lightness and mobility, comes from the combination of ether and air. And Pitta dosha, or the fiery dosha, comes from the combination of fire with a little bit of a liquid element. Sometimes it's called oily, not just liquid like water. And Kapha, the final of the 3 main doshas, comes from the combination of water and earth. So Vata, Pitta, Kapha are our 3 main doshas. And dosha is a word that means that which can go out of balance. And the fact is that all of us human beings have within us obviously more than 5 great elements. We've got the periodic table in chemistry. We have a different understanding now through science of what we mostly are made up of chemically, and from a standpoint of physics, how things work, from standpoint of biology and its understanding of our interaction with other beings, sociology, all the sciences giving us, maybe a more well-rounded, understanding of ourselves in the universe. But what's interesting to me and has fascinated me for about the last 20 years is that these ancient Indian Vaidyas, or the Ayurvedic doctors, had a compelling and useful and actually effective way of seeing us in terms of a rhythmic understanding, and I would say an aesthetic understanding that we can apply to our lives now at this juncture, where we're seeing the limits of robotics, the limits of growth, the limits of the carbon-based economy, for example. So that's kind of an encapsulated in a nutshell account of Samkhya philosophy. There's said to be 25 tattvas. If you count these up, a tattva is just a principle or a condition. And these 24 principles are all said to lead to the 25th, which is the sight of the soul. Atma Darshan, it is in Sanskrit, the sight of the soul. And Iyengar, in his book, Light on Yoga, has an introduction which really captivated my imagination when I first read it in the 60s, that long ago, that the whole practice of yoga, which is the study of consciousness itself, is designed to bring us to the sight of the soul. And he ends his introduction with the Song of the Soul of Shankara, which is a very beautiful poem. Iyengar's daughter Geeta, I don't have her book right in front of me, but Geeta inspired me to study Ayurveda, because she would sometimes be teaching a class and say, oh, I had planned a sequence today, but it's much hotter than I thought, and you all look tired, so we're going to change our sequence. Better to balance your mood and your bodies. So if it were very wet, we've had 2 very wet days, we would do a more drying Pitta practice. If we were tired, we would do a more restorative practice. She could sense these things in us when we came before her for a class. So that was very inspiring to me. And now that we've discussed a little bit of this Samkhya philosophy, which is common to both yoga, the study of consciousness, and Ayurveda, the study of life, I just want to share with you my vision for the yoga centers of the world and the places where people gather together to practice this technique that leads us to the side of the soul, that we can see these centers, these places. I'm in my yoga center, the top floor of my house. You can see my yoga props around, which I consider my friends and my helpers in my path towards the side of the soul. But these places are beacons of light where we can better understand ourselves. We can begin to share what we learn about food, about breath, about sound, about movement, about poetry, about beauty. We can share these ideas with each other. We can gift ourselves with more of this beauty in our lives. And this is my hope for the world, that through this combining of the ancient principles of Ayurveda with some of the modern science that really undergirds and underscores and supports what these old ancient wise doctors were saying, and that the yogis, Patanjali among them, was teaching in the Yoga Sutras about the yamas and the niyamas and an ethical life, a moral life, how these principles all come together and giving us guiding lights for our path into the future. So enough about Samkhya philosophy. I'm going to now talk a little more about these 3 doshas. Now online and in my book, you will find a dosha test, a quiz that will result in numbers that will give you the quantity of Pitta, Vata, Kapha that you have within you. And some dosha tests have a separate set of questions for your mental makeup and your physical makeup. We know from being yogis that these 2 elements of our being, the mental and the physical, are inextricably intertwined. We cannot, during this lifetime here on earth, separate them. But it's interesting when we look now at the qualities of Vata, which is, I'll remind you, the combination of ether and air. Let's see. I need to move things over so I can get to where I need to be. Let's see, there's Vata, I think. What are the qualities of Vata? So there we have it. Because it's the combination of air and ether, it can be very dry. It is cold, there's no heat there. It is light in terms of the opposite of heavy. It is mobile, it moves, and because it moves, because air moves, it is considered the governing dosha. So important for all of us to keep our Vata dosha, however large or small a proportion we have of Vata in our mental and physical makeup. We need to keep it in balance. It can be erratic, it can be a little rough, it can be bitter, astringent, and pungent. These are the main tastes associated with Vata. And like wind is what you might think of when you think of the Vata dosha. It's like wind. It moves, it dries, it creates a shift. Whereas Pitta, this combination of fire with something liquid like fire, is obviously hot, can be oily, again light, there's not a lot of heaviness in fire, intense, fluid, it has that fluid element. Sometimes it can be fetid, sour, pungent, and salty are the tastes associated with Pitta that will increase Pitta, that will increase the fire of Pitta. So when you think of the mental qualities of Vata, mobile and erratic could also apply to the Vata mind. It's mobile, erratic, it likes new things, it likes change. Sometimes it likes change just for change itself, not necessarily for good reasons. And the Pitta mind can be encapsulated in one word as intense. It has tremendous intelligence, tremendous ability to discriminate or discern differences. It can be very judgmental for that reason, and sometimes very harsh, let's say, harsh. So moving on to Kapha, like water, we have the qualities of water and earth: heavy, stable, cool, dense, smooth, and sweet, sour, salty are tastes that we associate with Kapha. And it's interesting, but if you take those three tastes at the bottom of Vata and Kapha, they soothe the others. In other words, Vata is soothed by the sweet, sour, and salty tastes, and Kapha is soothed by the bitter, astringent, and pungent tastes. And we'll go over tastes again later. Sweet also is soothing to Pitta. And imagine my joy as someone who really had enjoyed sweet things as a child, to see that sweetness was not verboten in Ayurveda. And what I have discovered over these years of studying Ayurveda is that there is sweetness in so many different foods without the addition of white sugar, which basically is a kind of fire that can cause inflammation. So a lot of what we struggle with now is based on overconsumption of sugar and overconsumption of protein. So we'll talk maybe more about this later if we have time. So moving on to the sites of Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. See if I can bring these up. Here is the, no, that's the wrong one. Next one down. Sites of Vata in the colon, the large intestine, where we sort out the waste from the food that we're going to absorb through that one cell thin wall of the colon into the bloodstream. And the lower abdominal area in general is considered a site of Vata. And also, you know, as you delve deeper into the study of Ayurveda, it's called Apana Vayu. The Vayu, or the air that operates in that area, is downward flowing. The thighs themselves are considered Vata parts of the body. The bones themselves are considered Vata because they're dry and they're hard. And then the outer layers of skin and sometimes the hair are considered sites of Vata. And the ear is considered a Vata site. So ear problems, lower abdominal problems, difficulty eliminating, constipation sometimes occurs when Vata dosha is out of balance, or dryness in the skin. Now, if we shift gears and look at the sites of Pitta, we'll see that Pitta sites are also in the skin, but it's more the subcutaneous fat or the more oily part of the skin that's involved in Pitta. And sometimes when that fat is inflamed, it will cause Pitta skin to flush and become red. And red is the color of Pitta. Redness in the eyes, and eyes are a Pitta sense organ. The small intestine is more associated with Pitta. That's where the acids that our body makes to digest foods those acids go into the small intestine. And as those of you maybe with high Pitta may know, if you've ever had acid reflux, it's quite a burning sensation that we get if we have that acid reflux. It can actually burn the esophagus and cause a lot of problems. The red part of the blood is considered Pitta. Sweat, obviously, when there's a lot of heat in the body, there's sweat. The liver, spleen, and gallbladder are those organs that are involved in digestion and making acids. Also the pancreas, and which isn't there, but it's also involved. And then the stomach itself, which is the repository of those acidic digestive enzymes that can break down proteins and give us access to the nourishment in plant and animal proteins. So there you have it. And as I mentioned, when there are Pitta imbalances, it may show up in a eczema or patchy red spots on the skin. It may show up in the blood or the eyes, redness in the eyes, problems with the pancreas, liver, spleen, gallbladder, or stomach may also be present. And then when we look at the sites of Kapha, we see that the sites of Kapha are the white matter, the meninges of the brain. Maybe I forgot to mention, but Pitta is associated with the gray matter. The sinuses, the lungs, the tongue, the stomach, the synovial fluid in the joints, the lymph nodes. Mastic tissue is breast tissue. There's a lot of lymph glands around this breast tissue. And then the white part of the blood, the plasma. And I just want to note that the pancreas is both a Kapha organ, or a site of Kapha, and a site of Pitta because of the involvement that it has with digestive enzymes. So if there is an imbalance in Vata, in Kapha, you'll have things like heavy colds or heavy allergies or lung disorders, difficulty accessing the breath. Sometimes asthma in children is a sign of a Kapha imbalance. Childhood is the Kapha time of life, actually. It's when we're usually, if we're healthy, kind of juicy and plump, and that can lead to disorders of the lungs, the tonsils, for example. And then synovial fluid, if that is out of balance, it can cause rheumatoid arthritis, whereas Vata, I forgot to mention this, but Vata, because it is involved with the bones, if it gets out of balance, it can cause problems with the dry kind of arthritis, which is just, the arthritis that causes changes in the bones themselves. So that's kind of the grim side of things. But to go back to the positive, when everything is in balance, when we can figure out how to balance our bodily rhythms and our bodily components, our mental components that share in these 5 great elements, with the seasons as they progress, with the cycle of the day as it progresses, and become cannier, smarter, more discerning about what brings us into balance and what pulls us out of balance, then we'll find, I think, or I have found, that there's an awful lot of joy in living. That even through the many decades that I've studied yoga and now the decades that I've studied Ayurveda, I firmly believe that all of us at whatever age and stage we are in our lives can find meaning, can find beauty, can find purpose, and can find joy. And I take great joy in sharing that message with you. So I wanted to start with the dinacharya, or the cycle of the day. And I've drawn a circle because I can see my clock over there, and my wristwatch is a little bit circular. And obviously it's morning here now, and we're just coming out of the Kapha time of the morning, which is up from about 10 to 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. So when the morning dew is on the grasses and the flowers and the trees, and the moisture of the night is still present and begins to fade away with the coming of the sun. We're maybe going to get some sun today after some heavy rains. This is the Kapha time, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. approximately, depending on what climate you're in. And then from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., we get the middle of the day, the high point of Pitta. And then 2 p.m. to 6 p.m., the Vata time, where the heat has come, it's dried things out, things become lighter. There's a period after the middle of the day when we have a prime time for productivity. And then again at 6 o'clock, when the evening dew comes up, Kapha will rise again. And then the cycle of night, this is a 12-hour clock, not a 24-hour clock. So after Kapha, with the falling of night, which now here is about 8:30, what begins to arise again is the fire of the evening hours. And the ancient yogis and the ancient Ayurvedic doctors have recommended for hundreds of years that we, as practitioners of yoga and Ayurveda, take rest at night, that we actually sleep starting at 9 or 10 o'clock at night, so that our bodies, our minds get a rest. And it turns out that there's some very good reasons for this rest. The brain itself has a lymphatic system. It's called the Glymphatic System. And all of the vital organs of digestion need to kind of sort through the food that you have put into your body during the day. And that goes on at night. So if you're staying up late, that cycle is disturbed. And maybe you remember your student days. I certainly remember mine, where you might be studying late. You might have a paper due. You might have an exam. And you would find yourself up at midnight, midnight snacking even, and then having a kind of a light, restless sleep until you had to get up and go to class the next day or hand in the paper or whatever. And that kind of lifestyle can lead to a lot of stress and a lot of imbalance. So enough about that. Let me just mention a couple of practices that Ayurveda recommends for cleanliness and care of the skin. The skin is the largest organ in the body. As you may know, we've had many students come from many different parts of the world, and I'll talk more about that in a minute, but specifically of the United States, from the north, from the south, from the east, from the west, all different climates. And the skin being the largest organ of the body, if we have a lot of Vata or Pitta, it can get very, very dry. And it does get drier as we spend more time on the planet, which is my euphemism for getting older. So one of the best ways to keep the skin healthy is to anoint yourself, anoint oneself. But after bringing up my little spray bottle of oil, I'm remembering that in the daily showering that we do, the daily baptism, I like to call it, where you just say hello to the element water, a good way to start that is to dry brush your skin. And in dry brushing, we give the skin better access to its own renewal capabilities. We brush off the scurf or the dead cells. It's called scurf. I love that. And we give the skin a chance to renew itself. Long strokes over the long bones of the limbs, and then the belly and the back. And it's nice to have a long handle so you can do that. And then a nice warm shower, maybe finishing with cold water. A lot of the yogis were into cold water because it brings up the fire. It brings up your internal fire. It tells your heart and your circulatory system to get busy and bring warmth. And that's why cold showers have such a warming effect, actually. It seems a little counterintuitive. And then it's recommended to pat your skin dry. And then once you're damp dry, then to take 3 or 4 squirts of an oil. We say, almond is good for Vata, coconut is good for Pitta, and Kapha could be sesame, or sesame is a good tridoshic oil. You can try different ones. You could add different essential oils. 4 sprays, round in the belly, on the chest, 4 sprays, long over the long bones, round over the joints at the elbow and shoulder. And you kind of get the picture. And then you have anointed yourself. You've brought some love to your skin. And in Ayurveda, the Kapha dosha, which is oily, which is wet, which is liquid, is considered almost the most beautiful one, because it has a lot of a lot of glow, and that glow can be missing in the Vata dosha and the Pitta dosha because of the fire that can be drying and the wind that can be drying. So this oil is very, very important, especially now that we can't be massaging each other very much. We have to do it ourselves. So that's the dinacharya. One more thing to say about the food element, which is that we really want to have the main meal in the middle of the day. And maybe if before the pandemic, before COVID-19, you were living a life of great mobility, great busyness, maybe from 8 to 5 or 6 at night, you were busy and you were on somebody else's clock. So this is giving you an opportunity to be on your own clock and to feel how your rhythms actually do or don't harmonize with the rhythms of the day and the rhythms of the season. And there may have already been a time of transition for you, a time of adjustment. But I think you'll find that if you allow yourself to walk in nature, if you allow yourself to have your main meal in the middle of the day, instead of stuffing yourself at night and going to bed full, that if you arrange things that way, your Agni, which is the word for fire, your Agni is high in the middle of the day. The sun is high. It is our planetary representation of fire. So by taking on that fire, you're doing yourself a favor, basically. And then give yourself 10 minutes to rest and digest after your heavy meal. Maybe have a 20 or 30-minute walk, and then get back to whatever it is you want to accomplish in the afternoon, rested and nourished. So there is this principle that these digestive juices can be diluted if they are constantly stimulated. And I think you probably have noticed this if you are a snacker, that snacking just leads to more snacking. It's kind of like it snowballs. And I don't know if your grocery stores where you are like the ones here in Austin, and I've often felt blessed that we have such amazing grocery stores here, but often they will, in the past, not now, put out snacks for us to try the cheese or to try the dip or to try whatever. And I think that's really not very good. It's not very sanitary, number one. And number two, as I said, it's important to conserve your Agni, your digestive fire, for your main meal. Again, recommended in the middle of the day, a light breakfast and a light dinner. So you're not going to bed with a heavy meal on your stomach. So you can sort out, as I said, what you've taken in during the day while you sleep and come back to the next day rested and nourished. Final point about this eating, there's something called mitahara, or the moderation in eating, and intermittent fasting, which is common in Ayurveda and is a great topic of discussion now among scientists who are interested in longevity. And longevity also has been an interest of Ayurvedic doctors for hundreds of years. How do we prolong the healthy life? Not how do we prolong life and keep people alive on machines and pharmaceuticals, but how do we prolong a healthy life? This is a very different question. And what they found and recommended is that for a good 12 hours minimum every 24-hour cycle, you are not eating at all. You are fasting. And that period of rest for the stomach, that period of rest for the digestive organs and their producing of enzymes and juices that help us break down and digest our food, that is given a rest. And when it's given a rest, it replenishes, it renews itself, it stays strong. When it's constantly demanded that those jobs that the pancreas and the liver and the gallbladder do, when they're constantly busy, they get depleted. It just makes common sense. So this idea of intermittent fasting has gotten a lot of recent interest among the scientific community that is interested in heart health and mental health and physical health and longevity. So enough about that. Now we're going to talk for a moment about the Ritucharya, or the procession of the seasons. And as I said, and I'm still imagining that I'm in beautiful Samara, and I'm coming to the end of my talk, and I'll be able to go over to the beautiful beach and dive into the beautiful ocean. But basically, wherever we are, there are seasons. Even in Samara, there's a dry season and a wet season. And then there's seasons of transition between the dry and the wet and the dry. Here in Austin, we have kind of a small winter. So I drew winter kind of small, and I have over here fall to summer and spring to summer. Summer really being our longest, most difficult season here. I guess I should have mirror written this stuff. But anyway, this is Rituchari, the cycle of the seasons. So what's really key in Ayurveda is that a period of conscious change in the diet during the period of change in the season is highly recommended. Whether that's an actual water fast or a mono diet fast of our favorite food, which is a combination of mung dal and basmati rice called khichdi, often with spices, that this mono diet or this very limited diet is followed for a period of time that you could work out with your Ayurvedic practitioner or your Ayurvedic doctor, or you can research yourself and treat the lab of your own body with respect and do what feels instinctively right for you to do in the fall and or the spring to help you make that transition from the cold to the hot or from the hot to the cold. So in the appendix of my book, you will see a description of a seasonal cleanse. And I cannot tell you how renewing this is for the entire mind-body complex. It gives you time to reflect. You can journal. You can spend more time in nature. You can better understand what really tastes good, what really delights your tongue and your eyes in terms of the food on your plate. And there's a lot more to say about this seasonal cleansing. It can be very complex and involve the pancha, the 5 cleansing techniques of Ayurveda, which we're not going to get into here. But they involve partly this change in diet, limiting of the diet somehow, as well as herbs and other practices that can deeply cleanse and renew us physically and mentally. And having mentioned the food diet, I also want to mention that all of your senses, each and every one, has, in a sense, a diet. We take in sensory information through our eyes, through our nose, through our ears, not just through our mouth, through our skin, through touch. So basically, Ayurveda kind of clues you in to look more carefully, and there I am using sort of a visual image, but think more carefully, discernment, again, that intellectual function that we have, not just the mind which cognizes, but the intellect which can discern what is healthy and what is not. That we look at what we're taking in through our eyes, what we're reading, what movies we're looking at, or what shows we're looking at, what images we're taking in visually. Is that a healthy diet? The music, for example, is the music that you're listening to, does it lead you to a sense of harmony, balance, and freedom and joy? Or does it take you deeper into maybe whatever your fears are right now? Because certainly fear has been present, and you know, fear obviously has a function. When we are fearful, we learn that we may need to make some changes, and that's exactly where we are right now. We may need to make some changes. And let's do that with consciousness that comes from our better understanding of how the consciousness works from our yoga practice of asana, pranayama, meditation, and from our Ayurveda practices that nourish us so deeply, physically and mentally, with mantra, with fully understanding our connection to something greater. Whether you believe in God or not doesn't matter, but it's just how do we fit into the big picture. So all of that said, I'm going to spend the last few minutes here before we get back to our original mantra, which I would like to repeat once we're done with Surya Namaskar. I want to salute the sun and point out that if we do the sun salutations quickly and work up a sweat, we are in danger of, or we could unbalance Pitta. So if it's already hot outside, or if you're in a heated yoga studio, just be careful if you have a lot of Pitta in you, because that could aggravate that dosha. On the other hand, if the season is spring, if it's a little cool, if you're feeling heavy, if you're feeling stuck, then quick movement and sweating could be really just the ticket for you. It might really help to balance that Kapha dosha, which is maybe a little bit out of balance. And finally, in this theme of balance, what I'm describing is not living on a flat line. Okay, there are obviously highs and lows. There's the cold of winter, there's the heat of summer. And what we're learning to do through combining yoga and Ayurveda is to dance this dance with what's around us, with the Prakriti, the nature that's around us, and the Prakriti, the nature that's inside of us, in a more creative way, in a more sustainable way. And in that process, we become more resilient, more able to share what we have, what we know, which is what I'm hoping I'm doing today. So Surya Namaskar, I hope, is familiar to all of you. It's something that you can easily do along with me. We're going to do 2 cycles. And in the second cycle, I will add in a standing pose, which I will then show you with the help of the wall and perhaps a prop, so that you can see how much I appreciate my supports, and we can still support each other through this miracle of technology, I guess, and be thinking ahead to how we will continue to support each other when our world gets beyond this virus. So standing in Tadasana, which is the mountain pose. Tada also translates as palm tree. Just going to move my blankets out of the way and tip the screen so you can see. And we'll be moving in sync with the breath. So I may be moving a little slower or faster than you would like to, but I want you again to think, as you're doing these movements, how when we move into the stillness of holding an Adho Mukha Svanasana, for example, the downward dog, how that movement into stillness changes your perception of yourself when you are still. And how when you start moving again from downward dog, we'll move into a plank and then into cobra and upward dog, how different the mind is when the body's involved in movement. But all of this, again, combined with the breath. So let's get to it. We'll be standing in Tadasana with the feet pressing evenly and equally downward, just as the sitting bones were when we were sitting. So I'm going to move my mat back so you can see it better, at least the bottom half of me. Will that do it? No, I think I need to move closer. Maybe I tip the screen. Okay, so I'm here. You can see the bottom half of me in Tadasana, and I'm holding my hips for a moment just to get that major curve out of my lower back. I have actual fracture there, and I need to really pay attention to that. All of us, navel back toward the spine, front thighs up, heels down. I'm lifting my toes and spreading them a little bit. And then from here, from this firmness in the legs, compactness in the hips, I lift the side ribs like I did sitting. I square the shoulders in the sense that I'm flipping them on my back and widening my collarbones. I exhale. And then a deep breath in, looking up as my arms rise to the sides and then overhead, watching those palms turn forward, and then very slowly and carefully folding over. This is my pivot point here, right at the groin, folding over, and I will bend my knees if I feel a big uncomfortable tug in my lower back because my hamstrings might be tight. So if that's you, bend your knees. It's not me today, some days it is. And then I'll exhale and fold in a little deeper and move my head closer to my legs. Again, I won't do this if it feels unsafe, uncomfortable, or unpleasant here. I want to stretch this more than the back. And then I'll inhale and lift again, bend my knees if I haven't already, and step my right leg back, a big step into a lunging position. I call this the high lunge. I have my left knee over my ankle, you can see there. And I'm firming that front thigh here again, just as I did in Tadasana, firming the outer hip, taking a breath. And then I'll move from here with a little momentum. I could go forward and then back into Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog. And I've moved into the stillness of downward dog, looking at my thumbs, letting my breath take care of itself. Just check in with that breath and keep it continuously flowing out and in. And with my eyes toward my thumbs, do you see I'm able to press more into the heel of my hand without losing the fingers or the bases of the fingers. And I can lengthen the side ribs, lengthen the armpit, and let the arms become a little more active that way. I want to be sure the mouths of the thumbs and the index finger base joint stay solid on the ground as I roll my inner biceps out. And then push the top of the thighs back with almost all my might, very strong at the top of the thigh, navel to the spine. So we've been here a while, I can finally release my head. And after an exhalation, what I'll do is I'll breathe in as I look up again and glide my shoulders over my wrists. And then inhale, and as I exhale with the shoulders over the wrists, I forgot for a moment where I was going. From the plank, which I'm in now, I'll exhale and softly and gently bring my knees down. So I have 4 points on the ground, 6 points with my feet. And then when I add 7 the chest and 8 the chin, I'll have 8 points on the ground. This is called the 8-pointed pose, Ashtavakra. And then I flatten my belly down. I move my pubis into the ground and pull my hands back against the stickiness of the mat to lift my ribs and look up. This is Bhujangasana Cobra. And from Bhujangasana, I can come into Urdhva Mukha Svanasana, pressing the palms down, keeping the knees down for a moment, so that as I get ready to walk my knees a little bit forward, like that, and then bend my toes under so I have more power in my legs, I can come into the toes bent under version of Urdhva Mukha Svanasana, upward facing dog. Really coil the spine in, look a little bit up, keep the legs active, arms active. These are organs of action. And then with an exhalation, pivoting the hips up again, I return to Adho Mukha Svanasana. So here I am again in downward facing dog, moving into that stillness. I'm not going to spend so long here this time. And as I get ready to come into the lunge again, I want to be sure that I'm alternating legs within the cycle. So the same leg that moved back into the lunge the first time has to move forward. So I'm going to inhale and lift that leg up so I can get some momentum here. And then I'll move my navel to my spine as I exhale and shift that leg forward. So it comes as close to my hands as possible. If it's really shy of that, I can use my own hand to bring it up a little further. Now I have my other leg behind me. I'm pushing that heel back. I'm drawing the front thigh up as before. I'm keeping the hip active, so both hips are compact from the outside to the inside. And after an inhalation in this high lunge, again, I can use a little momentum. I can shift a little back. And I'm going to bring my feet to parallel. I actually balance better with my feet slightly apart, so I'm going to give myself that little gift. Feet are parallel. I'm looking up. Again, I don't fold in any deeper. If this is enough for my lower back, you have to be your own judge of your own lower back. I'm running into my wooden prop here. And then the hands will come to the hips. Inhale. You can use your hands to move the sacrum toward the heels. So you're coming up with very straight legs. Collarbones broad, shoulder blades firm, elbows lifted. And then you're up again. And you can finish as you begin, taking the arms to the sides. Inhale, look up. Watch those palms come together in space. And then down to the sternum, to the breastbone, come the thumbs. This is Namaskarasana. You can't see it, but I'll dip down so you can. So this position is how you can begin and end if you like. So we're going to do one more cycle. And within the cycle, I'm going to include, after the second downward dog, a standing pose called Uttita Parshva Konasana. That means extended lateral angle pose. So we'll do this pose within the cycle, and then I want to show you how I would use the wall, or I might even show you the Tressler today. Let's see. Tressler is kind of an odd tool. Maybe I'll stick with the wall. It's unlikely people have trestles at home, that's what this thing is. So beginning again, let's start with the feet apart. You can just compare and contrast how stable you feel. With the feet apart or together, exhale, press the heels down, lift the front thighs up, lift the heart up away from the belly. Navel moves toward the spine, especially as you exhale. Keep it there as you inhale. Turn the palms out, take the arms sideways and up, look up. Lift that whole rib cage, even the back ribs. Spin the palms forward, exhale, and fold over into Uttanasana, or this forward bend. Look back, release your head. And then inhale, come up, bend your knees if you haven't. So we're switching off. Left leg will move back and forward this time. And I'm in my high lunge for a breath, looking forward. The right knee is over the ankle. The back leg is very active. The hips are compact. And then I'm coming to Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward dog from here for a few breaths. I start looking toward my thumbs again, as I did before, to get that greater length through the armpits as I roll the inner bicep out in each arm and firmly push the shoulder blades into the upper back. As I get longer and longer in the side body and armpit area, my heels will be back and down. I don't know if you can see, but they're actually touching the ground now. That's an interesting end point for those heels. Push them into the ground without bending your knees. And after an exhalation, inhale, come through plank. Inhale to 8 points. Exhale, knees, chest and chin. And then flatten the body and get ready for upward dog from cobra. So cobra keeps the pelvis down. This is cobra. Upward dog lifts the pelvis up. Tailbone sucks into the body. Top of the sacrum moves into the body. You can lift the knees and activate the legs and arms to thread the body through the arms and look up. And then exhale and pivot the hips up and back. Again into Adho Mukha Svanasana. The heels move back and down. There they are. Heels move back and down. Now to do this extended lateral angle pose, I'm going to bend my knees and swing my left foot forward so I can face and make sure all the angles are good. So I've got my left ankle under my left knee. I've turned my right toes a little bit to the left. And I'm just going to come up with my left forearm on my left thigh bone and my right hand on my hip. And as I turn my ribs and my head so I can see better that these lines are good, and alignment is a big principle in our approach to yoga in the Iyengar method. We want to be sure that the bones line up, and when the bones line up, the organs have more space to do their vital work, the digestive organs we talked about. The head and neck and nervous system line up a little better. So I want my ribs to be even on both sides. I want to make the best right angle I can here and keep this leg straight. So for this first pass at extended lateral pose, I'm just going to turn these upper ribs back, lengthen these bottom ribs and roll them forward, and then take this arm, you can't see it, but it's out over my ear, and I'm looking up underneath the wrist toward the ceiling. And I'm breathing. And then to come out, I'll just exhale, come down with that arm, put both hands on the ground, and then again with a little momentum, I can swing this back leg forward and have parallel feet looking up. I won't fold in if my back feels compromised. I really want the stretch here in the hamstrings. I will fold in if they're doing their job, lengthening those hamstrings. And then I'll come up, hands on the hips, sacrum to the heels, open heart as you come up, arms to the sides, looking up, palms together, and then down to the chest. So now I've got another mat back here, and I'll just show you briefly how I use the wall for that very same pose. Sometimes we use blocks. You can use the blocks for different things. I'll show you two different uses. You could put a block to here. I'll do the pose to my right, and then I'll be done with this. So I'm starting with my feet together. When I bend my knees and step my right foot out and then my left foot out, I'm in a pose we call Hasta Padasana, Utthita Hasta Padasana. Arms are the hastas, legs are the padas, so both arms and legs are extended. And then one of these blocks, I'm gonna, as I turn my left toe slightly to the right, push with my thigh bone, my whole Vata thigh bone. I'm pressing into the block now. And as I turn my entire right leg out from the groin to the inner knee to the toes, I want that whole leg to spin from inside out. I want to line up that right heel with the left arch. And then this other block I'm going to use in front of the ankle. So instead of resting my forearm on my thigh bone, as I bend the knee, I'm just holding this other block so it doesn't get lost. And I'm noticing in the screen that I haven't got quite enough distance between my feet to create that angle that I want. So I'm going to wiggle my right foot a little further out, keeping it in line with that left arch. Now I'm getting a little closer so I can take the block down in front of the ankle, as I said, and press my palm into it. So this left thigh is pushing that block into the wall. This right palm is pressing down into the block that's in front of my ankle. Can you see that? Yeah. And then my goal, I can feel a lot of pressure against the wall, which is my friend and my guide here, through my right hip. And I want this right buttock to move away from my sacrum towards that back heel, and also to be strong enough to be less heavy against the wall, to help me move this sitting bone forward. So left thigh back, we could say, right sitting bone forward. Not so easy, but it's making all kinds of amazing space in this part of my body, which otherwise would be compressed. So it's a help, you could say, to my digestion. So again, I want to lengthen my bottom ribs and roll them forward, roll my top ribs back, take my head back, not my hips so much, with that hip to be lighter, not heavier. This needs to push this left thigh. Then I'll take this right arm, that's my left arm vertical, rotate the upper arm bone in the socket, turning the palm toward the ground as it comes out over my ear. And then the thumb of this left hand, my head, and my block that's behind my left thigh, touching the wall, and my right buttock so strong that it's moving that right hip a little bit away from the wall, where it's not as heavy as it was. So that's my guide. I'll come out by inhaling, reaching up through the left arm, pressing down through the outer left heel, and then turn my feet forward. That block's a little bit in the way. And then I'll put them back where they were over here by the trestle, which is where I'll use them later. So that's left side, right side for me of that pose. If you want to take a minute to do the same work on the other side, please do. I'm out of time though, and I did want to review this mantra with you all before I shut off the recorder. So take a moment again to sit well. You can stop the recording and come back to it and do the mantra again after you've done the left side. Lift the side ribs, press the sitting bones equally and evenly downward. Relax. If you have questions, you can reach me through my website, pegasusbalance.com, or write to me through the school. They can put you in touch with me. And don't forget to visit Costa Rica and the beautiful beach at Samara. It is an amazing place. You will be cradled in the arms of the earth and the ocean there. The sky is beautiful, the sunsets are beautiful. You need to visit. It's a perfect place to set some new intentions for your life. So if you like, for this mantra, you can bring your palms together, close your eyes, begin to connect with your heart, connect with your discerning intelligence. 3 ohms, and then we'll do that mantra in 2 little chunks. I'll be repeating 2 words at a time twice. So take an easy breath in, a natural breath in. Follow that with a deeper breath out and a deeper breath in. Let's just start with 1 ohm and give ourselves a little more time for the mantra. So 1 ohm together. Om. Listen and repeat, or if you know it, repeat with me twice. 2 words. Loka samasta loka samasta. And then the last two words, sukhino, delight or happiness, sukhino bhavantu, sukhino bhavantu. And the whole thing together, loka samasta, sukhino bhavantu. Om. So all the best to all of you. Namaste.